Joe Biden was just talking the other day about, his concerns about a negative bloodbath.
And this is probably going to be a bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
It would be a bloodbath. Not
they could see a bloodbath, too.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath. We're going
A bloodbath at the ballot box.
That bloodbath tastes like raspberry sweet jam, Mark Thiessen, because that's a lot of hypocrisy we just saw.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath for the media's credibility.
We begin with former President Trump setting the record straight, slamming Democrats and the media for manufacturing outrage over these remarks at a rally this weekend.
Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars.
President Biden was quick to react, accusing Trump of wanting another January 6th on social media. It didn't take long for fellow Democrats and the media to fall in line and echo Biden's attack.
What I heard was a continuation of the same rhetoric, the same endorsement of political violence that we've seen from Donald Trump for years, as you pointed out. It goes even farther back.
We are all desensitized and inured to the extraordinary, remarkable, and very, at times, un-American and threatening things that the former president is saying.
We can't take him, look at what he's saying and think, oh, well, we're going to be accurate for this. We're going to say he was referring to the auto industry.
We just have to win this election because he's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here.
We did not miss the full context. This was not some meandering off-message comment. This is his message.
Obviously, he's talking about a bloodbath for America. It's laid out in the terms of it. And these idiots on Twitter, these idiots on cable news, these idiots on Sunday shows going, well, presidents, he was talking only about the auto industry, and this is one more. It's just let me say that at 6:15 a.m. It's just he knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid. He was talking about a bloodbath.
With such uproar over Trump's remarks, you would think his critics would have never used a term like bloodbath in the past. Think again.
But as Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC,
as part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Coming out of Iowa, they were promising that this was effectively going to be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough.
The midterm elections may not be the bloodbath for Democrats that's been predicted.
Joe Biden was just talking the other day about, his concerns about a negative bloodbath.
And this is probably going to be a bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
It would be a bloodbath. Not
they could see a bloodbath, too.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath. We're going
A bloodbath at the ballot box.
That bloodbath tastes like raspberry sweet jam, Mark Thiessen, because that's a lot of hypocrisy we just saw.
Yeah, it's a bloodbath for the media's credibility.
Here's the problem. When everything is an outrage, nothing is an outrage, right? So he was clearly talking about the economy. He was clearly saying this was going to be an economic bloodbath for American workers. The big problem with what he said was that he was going to violate his own U.S. Mexico-Canada free trade agreement in order to stop this. But they keep doing this. He goes and makes a joke saying, well, I'll be a dictator for one day. And they say, aha, he admitted he'd be a dictator. Or he says he's going to round up all the illegal migrants that Biden let into the country. And they put out a statement saying he's admitted that he's going to deport, round up millions of Latinos. No, he didn't. He said he's going to round up the illegal migrants that Biden let in. And oh, by the way, Biden just in his State of the Union asked Congress for money for what? Detention beds. He wants to detain them too, supposedly. So it's just this. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Every time, when everything Trump says is an outrage, they tune you out and people don't listen. They wonder why no one cares when they call these things out and why people are still supporting Trump despite these statements.
And Kaylee, so we heard that apparently if there was a context associated with the term bloodbath, that you would be an idiot, that you, in fact, weren't midst of the full context. But let's put out what President Trump said this morning on Truth Social, which was describing, in fact, the context, saying, look, the fake news media and their Democrat partners in the destruction of our nation pretended to be shocked at my use of the word bloodbath, even though they fully understood that I was simply referring to imports allowed by crooked Joe Biden, which are killing the automobile industry. So they're the subject of their ire, explaining for the millionth time, look, this was the context, and yet there's still a huge vitriol, or at least manufactured vitriol.
Right. Look, you would expect Biden and Team Biden to take a part of President Trump's comments and capitalize on it. That's just what campaigns do. You would expect Pelosi to do it. Hillary got in on the action doing the same this morning. You'd expect Democratic operatives to do that. But the problem is when the Biden-Harris headquarters, their rapid response team, can take a clip of Joe Scarborough, put it out this morning, and it's the media doing the bidding of the left. It is as if the media is the rapid response team for the Democrats. There needs to be a real reckoning among the media because there's a crisis of confidence in this institution. How do you report this story? Put out Trump's comment, put it in full context, allow Trump to expound upon it, and then put out the Biden campaign statement and allow viewers to see for themselves what actually happened. But you don't see that in media. Instead, you see them jumping to be the left's rapid response organization. This is why I must say we have to have presidential debates. America deserves to see Trump, his statements in full, Joe Biden, his statements in full, and make a decision. Because right now you've got the media interpretation, and Americans deserve better.
But Morgan, let's see what Americans have been subjected to visually. So here's just a small sample of some of the headlines by your liberal media, right? Politico, Trump says country faces bloodbath. NBC, Trump says there will be a bloodbath. How many times can they put in our face a certain line, to Kaylee's point, and not have the full context, not have the full explanation, not just have anything else whatsoever except for calling other people idiots and swearing on live TV?
Yeah, and you know, the headlines are a part of the media falling prey to clickbait because the media needs a sensational headline in order to get clicks. I saw this as State Department spokesperson in the Trump administration. There was such a fascinating generational divide between the older AP and Washington Post reporters who have been covering the State Department for 2+ decades, didn't ask me sensational questions, reported the facts, and then you have the young ones that came in that wanted to get clicks on social media, on Twitter, that wanted headlines, and the way that they asked questions was made for TV compared to the older State Department reporters who have been around and actually wanted the facts. So I think there's a very worrying trend from my perspective, Emily, on what younger journalists are being taught by their editors. That's a clickbait headline, and it's no longer just social media influencers that are doing clickbait headlines. It's the mainstream media. Finally, I would say I was at the Gridiron Gala Saturday night, and President Biden's speech was very interesting. It's supposed to be funny. His speech wasn't funny at all. And at the end, he was admonishing the media, saying democracy is on the line. You have to do your job. You have to do what's right. Washington Post reported his speech in fullness. You could go and read it there if you're interested. But it was weird. It was bizarre to me. The media in the room were getting their marching orders from the president, and I found it very unseemly.
Molly, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think everyone has made some great points, and you talked about the setting of the news for the day. Scarborough even points out 6:15 in the morning that he's screaming about this, and then here we go into the rest. We go into the rest of the day, and I think what strikes me about this one is the lack of subtlety. It was very clear that former President Trump was talking about the auto industry. Yep. It wasn't remotely mysterious, so it was a tough spin. So when you're saying the quiet part out loud, but you're actually screaming it in people's faces, and it's so obvious that that's not what President Trump was talking about, then it becomes more clear that even the mainstream media, and that's the concern, not when Pelosi is saying these things, but when you see those headlines like we just showed, and it's NBC, CBS, you see some of the real, the thoughts that people are like, oh, I can trust this source of media, and you see the headline. Very concerning. The lack of subtlety. It's like it's crossed a bar now.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
It's not about justice. It's not about agenda. It's not about mobilizing people. It's about dialing for corporate dollars. These two parties have sold the U.S. government and the American people to the highest bidders.